level
Well,
services budget.
Well, not completely level services, because we're
Level
still.
services budget with these level one
Right.
things out of it.
Right. And,
Which
but my goal is to go
protects
back.
most of the staffing,
Right.
changes, yeah.
But then my goal would be after that, if we did get enough funds to cover this, to go back and look at those level one cuts again. If, for example, the first thing I would recommend is we restore the 2 days we cut.
Mhm.
But, so that's the problem, you know, to sit here and say, well, we might get 150,000 from the selectmen, and we might get X from stimulus, which we might get over 2 years or 3 years, and we might be able to spend this way or that way, and then we think we're gonna get this from IDEA money, but does it go over 3 years, is it 2 years, can we spend it in 1 year, and then, so that's why, and we do have, oh, I'll ask Bob, how long do we have, Bob, to get a solid number for the budget?
Well, I would say a week before the 27th.
Right.
It's gonna be a handout, so it's not a big question of getting it published or printed.
Right, it'll be put up on the website, and it'll be a handout at town meeting.
Right, and again, this is different than other previous years since I've been involved, where we had to have an actual budget printed by today and submitted.
Well, we actually, if you look back last year, although we printed it, we actually had a different budget when we presented it.
Yeah.
And we decided not to print anything this year because of the cost of printing, until, you know, we have the budget firmed up. But I'm optimistic that I can be optimistic about the stimulus money coming in and being usable for the school budget, the Chapter 70 money and the IDA money.
Right.
And I'm reasonably certain that we will know before we have to print the omnibus article for the 27th.
And my understanding is we should know by,
Early April, first, second week of April.
Better understand.
Right.
And keep in mind that the level services budget is not utopia.
Right. Right.
Level services means level services from this fiscal year to next fiscal year.
Right.
It doesn't even go back to restore, as has already been discussed, some of the programs, the cuts that were made before that. So it's a little deceptive. It's just level services from FY '09 to FY '10, really.
But as Mr. Marsari just stated, I would like to kind of leave this meeting tonight just being optimistic that we are going to get funds, and once we get a clearer idea of what those funds are, then put the budget together, and then have our public budget hearing and get more input at that time. And we probably will have to have another budget workshop once we find out what that funding is going to be, because I think we're going to have to then sit down and say, okay, this is how much we have, what do we do with it? I can't see any other way to do that. So that will probably be, you know, sometime within our next few meetings, I would think. Probably our first meeting in April, if not sooner.
I think it's safe to say that we would stop the bleeding. We would go to level 2,
Right.
and that's $1 million.
Just some observations. When you look at the school system and the level of cuts and reductions that the North Reading Public School system has to propose and to make, it becomes very apparent the level of frustration and, I guess, anger that a parent could have or a community could have when you look at fees that are charged in the town of North Reading, and you look at a matrix that has 351 communities on it, and so many of those communities, and I guess I haven't taken the time to add them all up, but there's a lot of them that have zeros in most of those columns. And North Reading has no zeros in any column except for parking fees. It is the only fee that any other community in the state of Massachusetts does not charge. We charge in every category. We have no zeros, and we charge almost to the maximum in every category. So, you know, we can make that available on the NRU website so that people can see for themselves that this isn't pie in the sky. When you talk about amputations, they are amputations. core means core, and we don't even provide the core. I can tell you who's helping to provide the core. You know, you talked about the fact that that pyramid never got completed last year. So we're not in a satisfactory position even from last year's cuts. And then you think about a school system that cannot even provide textbooks, state-of-the-art or updated volumes of literature for the 8th graders, which is the largest class that has ever gone through this school system, that had all kinds of problems with it last year, and we're not going to fund textbooks in our school systems in North Reading. So we're not providing the core. We don't provide as much technology as other communities, and the parents have actually paid for the smart boards that are in our classrooms. We do provide as much of the core as possible, and you do a fabulous job, and the administration and the teachers do a fabulous job. But to enrich the students' lives, which, you know, the parents are paying for all the enrichment programs as well. So the $1 million the parents are already paying in fees does not include the smart board technology, the enrichment programs that parents are paying for, and the books that we'd love to pay for, and everything else to make this core actually core. I do hope that you will seriously consider the administration's feedback when you're making your cuts or adding things back. I hope that you'll listen to parents as well, as you have been. I do think that as a community, we do need to continue to fight for additional resources, whether it's through the town, but mostly through the state, and we will continue to do so. I guess I'm going to ask publicly again for parent support to do that, because in so many communities around us, there are communities not paying fees, and we're being feed to death. And they're not more than 5 minutes in driving distance from here. Things are not equitable, they are not fair, and it's unacceptable that our students bear the brunt of that. So I do know that, you know, we're going to continue to fight at the state level on behalf of NRU and Stand for Children. I want to invite any parent who's received an email regarding a postcard, which is a legislative opportunity to fill out that postcard. It'll take you 30 seconds, but it'll have a lasting impression. We are going to march at the State House on March 24th, and I just want to ask parents to consider an hour and a half of their time to do whatever it takes to get more funding in this community so that we don't have to continue to have these difficult discussions, because we are not at core. This is not a core school system that we're providing to our students. So anyway, we will continue to fight. I thank you for everything you're doing.
I do want to say that one of my biggest disappointments in my time on the board is I came on here and I said one of my first goals was to reduce fees. And I think we've increased them probably every other year. I know, it's my fault, that's why I'm mentioning it now, because it's a year before I have to run again, so I don't want people to remember in a year.
Just so people know historically, though, the fees, over the last 6, 7, 8 years, the fees are a result of us having budget deficits in other years.
Right.
And the only way we could make up those deficits in prior years, and this has been an ongoing process now, was to implement these fees. And all the fees that you look at are, for the most part, for things that we did not have to provide by law, but that we felt were very, very important. And my position on the fees has always been to give the community the option. We do not have to provide busing for certain students, okay?
Of 7th grade and up, right?
7th grade and up,
Right.
and more than 2 miles from
Right.
the school. We did not necessarily have to provide a full interscholastic athletic program. We did not have to provide full-day kindergarten, but these were all things that we felt were important. And whereas some communities, for instance, like Reading, does not have busing except for mandatory busing, we felt it was better to give an option to the community to pay for these things. So even though they're important, they weren't required, and in order to fill budget gaps in the last 6, 7, 8 years, we implemented these fees. Deanna's right, we're feed out. We cannot add to these fees anymore. So the option of using fees to offset deficits is gone. You know, we've done everything we can with that. And it would be our goal to start to reduce some of these fees because it's just too much of a burden on the parents who have kids in our schools.
And Jerry's right, they're not required, but I think we'd all agree, as far back as we all go, all these things have been part of the educational process, even the bus ride to school. You know, athletics isn't required, but it's really, when you have almost 70% of your students participating in at least one varsity sport or one sport at the high school, you can see the importance of the athletic program. And I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, our kindergarten fee, because we get absolutely zero subsidy from the school department for the full-day kindergarten, it's 100% supported by that, which is now $425 tuition, which is well above the state average. The state average is somewhere in the $2,000, $2,500 a year, and we're now charging $4,250 a year. But again, most of those districts have some sort of subsidy that they provide from the town or from the school department to the full-day kindergarten. We don't. So I guess at this point, unless Dave, you want to say anything to close? So at this point, I guess the best thing I can advise all of you is to watch the newspaper for the agendas, watch for Alert Now emails. You know, we could be discussing the budget as soon as our next meeting, which will be at the little school. Depending on what we find out, our next meeting will be the 23rd. Actually, we're meeting at the little school for our second year. So as I say, watch the agendas and watch for your emails, read the transcript, and hopefully by middle of April, we'll have something permanent to decide on for a school budget. Thanks. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, loyal administrators, for coming to this tonight. All right. I guess that's the only, next we move on to our to routine matters. Bills and payrolls all signed?
Pass.
Okay.
We need one more signature.
One more signature? Minutes?
I have a correction for the March 2nd.
Oh, you do, okay. We have one set of minutes, right? Yeah, March 2nd.
They spelled Cliff's name wrong.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Oh, wait a minute. Steve Jervy. Steve.
As I cry, I'm not Steve Jervy.
Good catch. I don't even read the names. I'm glad someone did.
Because I haven't seen that name, I thought I picked up the wrong folder.
So other than Steve Jervy being played by Cliff Bowers at our last meeting, I didn't find any other mistakes.
Make a motion to approve with that change.
We have a motion. Yeah, we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
That is amended.
Second by Mr. Bowers, motion by Mrs. Baca. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Budget update, Carl, you don't have anything?
No, we don't.
Staffing, David? No. And we do have a donation, correct?
Yes.
It's incorrect in the minutes,
Yeah, this,
the letter, in the letter, the amount's different.
in David's memorandum, right, it says a different number.
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be 350.
Okay.
350.
So this is a generous donation made by Mr. Philip Junta to the North Reading Middle School in support of $350 in support of our grade 8 trip to Washington, D.C. And this is a situation where residents and businesses donate money to help subsidize a trip for certain kids. So we accept this donation with gratitude and thank Mr. Junta. Could I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Venezia, seconded by Mrs. Vaca. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes. I just lost one. Subcommittee updates. We have the athletic subcommittee,
I think we covered that the other night in the,
right?
in the meeting.
And what's the other stuff? Do we have anything else on here?